Welcome to the SBI Podcast, offering CEOs, sales and marketing leaders ideas to make the number.
Hello, SBI Podcast subscribers. My name is Scott Gruel. I'm a partner with SBI, a sales and marketing consulting firm dedicated to helping you make your number. With me is my co-host, Ryan Tognazzini, a principal with SBI. On this show, we discuss sales and marketing emerging best practices for viewers just like you, executives trying to make their revenues. You ready to do this, Ryan?
Let's do it. On today's show, we're going to discuss the impact of hiring the right talent and what that has on making your number. Specifically, we'll discuss how strategic alignment can impact those hiring decisions.
The key here is that we're looking forward to the strategy of tomorrow. Hey, Ryan, in my experience, leaders tend to default to hiring from industry. So for example, a CEO in software hires a sales leader from software. The problem is emerging best practices continue to advance, and yesterday's successful talent from industry could now be obsolete. Furthermore, as your strategy continues to evolve, your hiring practices have to keep pace and predict who you'll need for the future versus who is needed today. This applies from hiring a CEO to a frontline salesperson. How should leaders approach this, Ryan?
Yes, what we see is that top companies, they draft the best athletes. Not just those who know your offense and know how to run that playbook. And then what they do is they teach them the playbook so that they can make the plays. I mean, it's will versus skill. And sometimes the transition might be able to take a little bit longer just to get somebody ramped up in your industry, but the upside potential is so much greater.
Yeah. Always hire for competency over experience. Our firm's point of view is that making your number is equal parts talent and the performance conditions you put that talent into. If that is also true for producing a TV show, we might be in trouble here. This is a nice set. I'm not so sure about the talent.
Thanks. Thank you, sir.
Just kidding.
So if you hire yesterday's talent, your team's going to be competing with yesterday's playbook, and this is going to lead to you getting outpaced by the competition. So what ends up happening is you're reacting to the market. And as a leader, you're spending too much time reacting to problems and micromanaging versus improving your strategy. And so what we would say here is the goal is that you want to really leapfrog the competition versus trying to always be playing catch up.
Yeah, Ryan, can you provide some examples of you see leaders making all the time when you're out interacting with them?
Yeah, so I think we mentioned hiring industry retreads. So managers love to hire from within industry, and why? The ramp time typically takes less effort. You've sold software before, you can sell it again. They already know the product. The training seems to be pretty simple for them, right? But to us, to me, this is the easy way out, and it's not necessarily the best method.
Yeah, for example, if you're hiring a salesperson from industry, why would they leave their current company in the first place if they're an A player and they're doing great, right? They'd be making a ton of cash. They'd be getting recognized. So making a lateral move would really be a step backwards. Most people looking to make a lateral move in the industry aren't A players, so don't fool yourself. They may be easier to hire and ramp, but they might plateau a lot faster, and you don't get the same uptick you would if you hired somebody else.
Yeah, no question. And we see this happening time and time again. So how about another example of making a hiring mistake?
Yeah. Hiring only while considering the role itself. Now, you may say, of course, I have to look at the role, and that's super important. But you have to make sure they can also work across functions, right? Everybody's heard of the sales rep that shatters the glass with marketing, and they can't work with other departments, and that leads to a lot of frustration.
Yeah, so ultimately, what happens is you hire somebody who consistently shatters glass, and they're causing you pain. Yeah. And it leads to distrust between departments, the time being spent on cleaning up messes versus doing the right things in the organization.
Yeah. Let's discuss one more issue we see often with hiring. This one we see a lot when hiring executives. It is hiring based on what worked at your last job. Many execs hire those they worked with before and trust. I understand why. Of course, I'd want to hire somebody I trust, right? But are they really the right fit for tomorrow? So hiring based on comfort and past experience can lead to running yesterday's playbook in your business.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the implications of making some of these mistakes.
Yeah, sure. On average, A players typically generate, as you know, 2 times what B players do. Most of the organizations we deal with, though, have a lot more B players than A players. If you make the mistakes we just discussed, the chances of hiring a B or a C player is so much higher than an A.
Yeah. When you have the right people, your chance of making your number improves dramatically. So, beyond that, so does your job satisfaction. Working with A players is actually fun. Being forced to micromanage poor performers, it sucks. right? Who wants to deal with everybody's problems and why they can't get their job done? So, I mean, I'm assuming you've had similar experiences as well.
Yeah. The difficult part is to understand that leaders know the importance of talent. They get it, right? Everybody knows you need great players on the field. So why do they continue to hire yesterday's talent, all right? Why do they continue to hire retreads that have topped out at mediocrity in other companies?
Yeah, great point. So, all right, we're going to take a quick commercial break to make the audience aware of the SBI blog and how to subscribe. But stick around, because when we come back, we're going to explore why sales leaders make the easy hire based on past experiences versus the right hire based on the emerging trends and the needs of the business. Stay tuned.
Each day, you receive hundreds of emails, tons of text messages, countless telephone calls, and sit in too many meetings. How do you find ideas to make the number with all this noise? The SBI blog filters all this nonsense for you and presents only first-rate ideas to make the number. Simplify your life. Subscribe to one blog and read the best content. Go to salesbenchmarkindex.com and subscribe today.
Welcome back. I am Scott Brewer, and my co-host Ryan Tognazzini is waiting patiently for me to stop talking. Today we're trying to help you make the number 2016 by discussing the issues associated with making the easy hire and how to shift your focus to hiring the right talent for tomorrow.
All right, so we're going to dive in and start using SBI's 6-step revenue growth methodology, and the supporting document here is the How to Make Your Number in 2016 report. And that'll guide our conversation for the rest of today's show. So the reason the 6-step growth methodology is very important to hiring is it provides a roadmap to what talent you'll require in the future in order to make your number.
Yeah. Leaders make the mistake of being reactive when hiring talent. This leads to hasty searches and ultimately hiring the wrong person. The impact of these decisions can be felt for years. I mean, the average cost of a missed hire is 5 to 7 times first year costs. And that's just the hard cost. The ongoing impact and the market impact can linger for years.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of opportunity costs that could potentially be lost there. And I mean, think about hiring an executive or a leader in your organization. I mean, the cost of mishire there could be $2 or $3 million. I mean, you think of a time where somebody's wasted $2 or $3 million hiring someone?
Yeah, I mean, this one was prolific and in the news. Yahoo hired a CEO from Google, right? The easy hire from in-industry. And less than 2 years later, he left with a $58 million severance. So, by the way, Ryan, if you ever want me to go away, I definitely accept checks like that.
Yeah, me too. Anytime you want to write me a $58 million check, I'll gladly pick up my toys and go home.
So, Ryan, why don't you share an example of where the CEO and one of our clients hired the wrong product leader and the impact on the organization?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things here. So, I mean, first of all, it took 2 years to launch a new product. And it should have taken 6 months. So, I mean, put yourself in the shoes of the sales leader of this organization who's got a number to sell that new product this year, and it's not even on the truck for his reps to bring to the market.
Yeah, you had no chance.
Yeah, exactly.
What about the marketing leader? What was the impact on the marketing leader?
Yeah, so I mean, marketing's out there trying to create demand for something that doesn't even exist, and trying to create message and warm up the market and generate leads. And, there's not even a product for the salespeople to actually execute and sell.
Yeah. Yep. So the problem in this scenario, one of the problems was that the organization didn't have clear functional strategies. So they went and hired the easy product leader, but not the person that could execute their future product strategy. And it led to a mess across all the different functions.
Yeah. And I mean, as we all know, our buyers have changed the way that they buy. I mean, they used to need salespeople to do a lot more for them earlier in their process, but they're just so much more educated in their process. And yesterday's playbook is now obsolete.
Yeah, what do you mean by our buyers have changed, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of companies used to sell to technology departments as an example. So they'd go in and they'd sell to IT. IT is the central buyer of the organization. And now you've got people in lines of business making purchases like the head of marketing or sales operations, or maybe the CSO needs an app. But the net of this is that buyers are buying differently, and IT isn't necessarily in that example the key buyer here. And so they're really actually fulfilling a request from the line of business to actually implement the solution, but they're not making that purchase decision.
Yeah. So how does that, let's pull this back to the topic, which is our talent strategy. How does that impact the overall talent strategy, that example?
Yeah, so I mean, if you've got people in your organization who've lived their entire lives selling to IT, and now they've got to go sell to a marketing leader, I mean, now they need to understand what's important to that marketing leader, and how can they change their message, and how does the product that they have in their bag actually solve the problems that a marketing leader has.
Yeah. Now I think of a football team here, right? You can draft a great player, but if they're in the wrong system, they're just not going to cut it. So you got to have the right system and have the playbook, and make sure you hire to that playbook, which in this case is a functional strategy. When you do that, you put the right people on the field, and that's when you score touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you look at the revenue growth maturity model, which we're showing on the screen here, it's on page 11 of the How to Make Your Number in 2016 workbook. It's impossible to reach level 5, which is predictable, without the right talent. And not being able to reach level 5 means it costs you more to acquire your customers, and those same customers ultimately will spend less with you over the lifetime that they're a customer in your organization, which, again, increases the chances of your number going down.
Gotcha. All right, we're going to take one more quick break here, and we want to make you aware of the SBI Podcast. When we return, we're going to give you the answers to the test by going through SBI's talent strategy.
Do you have too many things to do and not enough time to do them? Is finding time to learn best practices almost impossible? The SBI Podcast is your solution. Turn time spent exercising, commuting, and traveling into productive learning time with a subscription to the SBI Podcast. SBI Podcast listeners get unique insight into real-world sales and marketing issues through interviews with your industry peers every week. Find us on iTunes by searching for Sales Benchmark Index Podcast and subscribe today.
Welcome back. So far today on our show, we've talked about common mistakes leaders make when hiring, namely hiring from industry because it's easier versus hiring the best athlete to execute tomorrow's playbook. We've also talked about the impact those mistakes can have both on your team as well as your organization as a whole.
Let's talk about what to do now, what action to take. So the first thing is, if you don't already have clear functional strategies, you need to build them and you need to share them with your HR leader so that they understand exactly which talent you need. Ryan, if you were the HR leader and you're looking to hire talent, how would you use functional strategies to do that?
Yeah, so the strategy outlines what the person is supposed to be doing in the role. So as an example, what accounts a sales leader should have their team pursue, what sales process they should be using, how much revenue is going to come from partners, et cetera. It helps outline all of those things so that it's clear.
Yeah, and for those of you that looked at job descriptions, which everyone has at some point, you would know that most job descriptions are very high level and generic, and they don't go down to that level. So imagine if you're trying to hire someone, you can tell them you're going to be focused on these 10 accounts. You're going to be focused on these markets. How much more impactful that would be.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so if you have the workbook, on page 197, you can follow along. We're going to go through the 7-step talent strategy methodology with you. So the first thing listed is profiles, Ryan. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about profiles and why they're important?
Yeah, so basic understanding of a job profile is describing what good looks like.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, this has changed. There are more modern things that you should be going after when you hire new talent. So as an example, a key competency that we would recommend looking for, if you're selling complex solutions, would be the ability to do problem solving. So what do I mean by that is, you're going into an organization where they've got serious issues and you're trying to sell them something to actually fix the problem or solve their problem.
Yep.
So a rep's ability to do that is going to be critical. And it's not just about, how well you're able to express the features and benefits of the product.
Yeah, okay. The next one is assessments, the next area we're going to focus on here. So when you do this, you're trying to determine, do we have the right people and are we letting the right people into the organization? And for example, here you might look at, is the person we're going to hire, are they good on social? And that's something you can actually go look for on the web.
Yeah, one point on assessments here is a lot of organizations still do annual talent reviews or an annual HR review, which, the sales rep comes in, sits down, and his manager says, hey, you did a satisfactory or you exceeded expectations over here. And that's not what this type of assessment is all about. This is taking and going back to that role profile, understanding what those competencies are, and actually measuring your sales force as to whether or not they can accomplish those things. And if they can't, then you start moving into things like development plans and how to actually improve them, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Yeah, and if they can't, then it moves to number 3, sourcing.
Yeah, exactly.
So where do you find the best talent? Now, obviously, everyone has some type of way they go source talent. But what we talked about earlier is most people go to the easy spots, which is in industry or hiring from people they already knew. But, an example you gave earlier was going to a bar to hire people.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the profile.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, LinkedIn has changed the world when it comes to talent sourcing. I mean, there are, 300 million people on LinkedIn. So if you know what you're looking for and you can give some direction to your recruiting team and department, chances are they're out there. That wasn't around 10, 15 years ago, at least not at this level.
Yeah, the one other mistake I see a lot of leaders make here is they leave sourcing just to human resources. They don't do sourcing themselves, right? If you're going to come work for somebody, wouldn't you want them to reach out to you?
Yeah.
Right? So doing some sourcing yourself as a leader. So the next one on here is hiring. So Ryan, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about hiring and how they should approach that?
Yeah, so the hiring process itself, sort of the conventional wisdom is let's put them through a screening interview, let's have a couple of managers interview them, maybe we put them in a round table panel, and we'll do some reference checks and off we go. Seems like a good guy, let's bring him into the organization, right? So, what you're really figuring out is how you want to evaluate this talent. And, a new way of thinking about this is what we would call a job tryout. And so by doing the job tryout, what you're doing is you're taking the candidate out of a controlled scenario where they can answer questions that maybe they've been asked 1,000 times, and you're putting them in a real scenario where maybe they're coming and presenting as if you're a customer and explaining to you, why their solution is more valuable and why you should consider making a switch. And you get to see that person in a live action scenario.
Yeah, that's super valuable because everyone's seen the professional interviewer, right? They can kind of BS their way through anything. But this is the real truth serum.
Yeah, and salespeople, we got good BS. So chances of getting through an interview are pretty good.
Yeah. All right, so the next step here is onboarding. Now, onboarding is a well-known thing. The big difference here is most onboarding is done through like a 1-week class. You need to watch these HR videos, right? Here's our product. But the missing components a lot of times are really understanding the customer and the selling skills.
Yeah, to your point, you talk about a 1-week class. A lot of it is you get corporate culture or you get your admin requirements, et cetera, which, those are all good things, and in a lot of cases they're needed. And then the 1-week fire hose where you're expected to emerge out of that and all of a sudden be some fully ramped and capable, able-bodied salesperson.
Yeah.
And what we'd recommend here is to think about onboarding a little bit differently. Think about it in 60, 90, 180-day planning, and what are the indicators that somebody's on the right track at day 20, day 30, day 60, et cetera? And are they making progress or not, so that you don't end up getting disappointed 6 months down the road when the guy's not making his number, and you look back and it's like, well, I guess we didn't really help him by training him properly.
Yeah, that's a great point. How do you figure out if somebody's going to make it early versus investing in them for a year and finding out they're the wrong person? And then there's talent development. So how do you take someone you hired and you started to onboard and you turn them into an A player and really develop them into one of your best people on your team? How would you do that, Ryan?
Yeah, so this is all about constantly, measuring how somebody's performing. So you think about, we talked about doing assessments, right? So what are the competencies that the job requires and demands? And what are they doing well versus what are they not doing well? And here you can use things like individual development plans. And this is a gap that we see missing from a lot of organizations where they're not constantly trying to improve their existing talent. They sort of lose faith on them or push them out of the organization. And it takes effort. Don't get me wrong, this is hard to do at an individual level, but think about how many people in your organization we talked about are B players. If you're able to move the magic middle, that's the difference between making and missing the number.
Yeah, when people talk about why they left organizations, some of the biggest things they reference are my boss and I wasn't being developed, right? They didn't care about me. So really developing someone, and this isn't a once every 6 months exercise, this is every week, every month, IDP, coaching, ongoing development.
Yeah.
So the number 7 on the 7 steps of the talent strategy here is succession planning. So maybe you can tell the audience, Ryan, a little bit about succession planning and why that's so important.
Yeah, so if I'm a rep in an organization, where am I going? What's the end game? And this is also oftentimes omitted from organizations. And so what you end up having happen is maybe they leave because they don't like their manager, or they leave because they feel like they hit the ceiling. And it's like, I have no future here.
I hit the ceiling all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you're 8 feet tall. So, if you're thinking about, succession planning and, what you might be doing differently here, I mean, there's some great examples. One might be having sort of a leaders club or a captains club where, you're taking people you've identified as future leaders in your organization and you're having them attend leadership events or doing leadership development with them, or maybe you have them take on some responsibilities that the manager has so that they start to learn, the rhythm of being a leader in the organization.
Yeah, and this is super important because it's our belief that the frontline sales manager is really who brings that strategy to life on a daily basis. And if you just hire the best rep and throw them in a manager role, they might not be the best manager, and then you're risking that entire sales team's failure.
Yep. All right, so these are some approaches on how to think about hiring, retaining, and developing talent, whether the person is an SVP, a frontline sales manager, or a sales rep. So recommendation here, it's a 7-step process we just walked you through. Do not shortcut this process. Gut feel will be a determining factor for you of whether you can execute on tomorrow's strategy versus becoming the best.
Yeah, if I were you, I'd get into strategic alignment with your talent leader and ensure these steps are in place and executed properly by your leaders and the talent organization. Don't let yourself off the hook and think that these things are already in place. I hear it all the time, but chances are there's quite a few areas within your talent strategy that can be improved.
All right, good show today, Gru. Thanks for coming and joining me. So we're out of time for today's show. Thanks for being here and watching. We hope you enjoyed watching us and picked up a few insights along the way. And if you enjoyed today's show, suggest you subscribe to SBI TV at salesbenchmarkindex.com/TV, or you can find us at our SBI YouTube channel. We've got some outstanding guests confirmed for some of our future episodes that you will not want to miss. So until then, we wish you the best of luck as you try to make your number. So long.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on SBI services, case studies, the SBI team and how we work, or to subscribe to our other offerings, please visit us at salesbenchmarkindex.com.